How's everybody doing? Sounds like y'all are doing alright. Yeah, you know, I've enjoyed the show thus far, and I really want to encourage you to, grab a piece of ass. Anybody's will do. Get comfortable, get close, and listen up. I wanted to bring you something that you can enjoy. Thank you. Let's hear it for the sound person. Thank you. All right, so everybody okay? Good. So we had some beginning instructions about anal sex. I'm gonna fill in the details here. Is that all right? So this is how Jazzy met Ginny. She closes her eyes and presses her legs against the cool steel walls of the closed-in stall. She hopes no one can hear the scratch of her hands against the soft strip of fur covering the inside walls of her pussy. She couldn't take it any longer. The woman had kept staring, her soft curly mass smiling in ringlets around her beautiful face. She just needed to take the edge off so that she could concentrate on what the woman was saying, otherwise it was going to be a lost evening. Jasmine moved her legs wider, struggling to make room for her hand to push inside the narrow opening of the moist cavern. She just wanted to feel the fingers inside of her, slowly stroking her and making her moan. She bent over a little and scooted her ass a little further onto the edge of the seat. She knew her toes were curling up, and if anyone walked by, they would immediately know what was happening in that stall. She felt the cool air travel across her teeth as she hissed in the exhalation of the moment. Her middle two fingers stroked at the top of her vagina. She was lost in the moment and missed the first 2 times her name was called. Hey, are you all right in there, Jazz? Huh? I said, are you all right in there? Oh, yeah, it must have been something I ate. I'm sorry. No need to apologize. The woman's voice floated from across the tiled sink toward her. She heard the automatic water shut off and the buzz of the hand dryer stop, and then the click of the heels across the Carrera marble toward the door. She sucked in her breath, bit her lower lip, and waited. You know, the voice became soft and sultry. I could probably take care of that for you. If you'd let me. She paused again before walking away from the door, her stilettos clicking against the hard Carrera marble. The door opened and then shut. Jazz relaxed when she heard the sexy curly-haired maven exit. She relaxed until she heard the latch on the door snap shut and the voice reverberate across the tile. Open up the door, baby. Let me take care of that shit. Jazz slowly pushed up the latch of the door with her free hand and let it swing open. What it revealed was certainly more than what she expected. Ginny had moved the form-fitting snug black dress and laid it on the counter. She stood in a black silk teddy trimmed in red lace with garter belts holding up the black stockings the dress had formerly hidden. She dropped down to the floor, in a squat, and cocked her head to the right to get a better view of the fingers now stuffed inside of Jazz. May I? The question was more rhetorical than anything as she pulled the fingers out of Jazz's cunt, stuffed them into her mouth, sucked on them, pushing more into her mouth into the back of her throat, and began to stroke her head and neck methodically moving back and forth. Jazz just watched in amazement as her hand disappeared into the woman's orifice. The feeling of the tongue on the roof of her mouth bearing down on her fingers was more than she could stand, and she began to moan. Ginny reached up with her hand and began stroking the hard little knot, begging attention as it stuck out beyond the soft fur covering Jazz's lips. She moaned harder and edged toward her seat. She was riding the fingers as they moved deftly across the hardened clit. This was too much and too hard. She took her hands out of Ginny's mouth and caressed her face and reached back to grab a fistful of hair. Ginny relented. She let her hip give way, opened her lips and said softly, "Yes, baby." Oh, fuck. The sweetness in her voice sent shivers through her body and floods from her pussy. Don't you dare stop. Yes. Yes, baby, Ginny whispered. Jazz stood and raised Ginny by the hair. With her pants around her ankles, she struggled to move toward the bench across the room. She looked again at the door and saw it latched from the inside. She would have to move quickly to get what she wanted. Ginny continued to stroke her. She could feel her blood coming. She pulled back and withdrew the fingers against her clit. "I want your mouth on it." Pushing Ginny, y'all are like really quiet. Pushing, story time. I love it. I love the girls in the parents. Pushing Ginny against the floor, the woman obliged. At first, teasing with the tip of her tongue, she edged her lips in soft kisses over the naked flesh below the woman's belly and back down with her tongue between her lips. Suck it. I want to watch you suck me off. I want some head and neck action. You know what to do. Ginny nodded. She stared at the base of the vagina, and she started at the base of the vagina and slowly worked her way up, lapping the hot, thick, salty juice that was pumping from Jazz's cave. The acrid taste of the cum burned the back of her throat as she moved from the bottom of the clit slowly to the top and wrapped her mouth around the burgeoning mound of flesh. She pressed her hands against the thighs as she pulled her head back and forth in exaggerated fashion. She opened her mouth as Jazz tightened her grip around the fistful of hair. She let out a little squeal and opened her mouth wider to accept the growing clit. Jazz watched the woman and felt the blood rushing into her fat clit. She was tightening on a burst. The clit had already grown past the edge of her pussy lips. She watched as Ginny pushed her face against her body and back again. This time, as Jazz ordered her to take it, she slammed her body against the woman's face. The woman gasped and gagged as though the clit were too big for her throat. That was all Jazz needed. In one swift moment, she pulled the woman up by her hair, quickly turned her over the bench, ass up. Slipping one foot out of the loafers and pants, she straddled the woman, unsnapping the teddy and stuck the 2-inch clip between the woman's cheeks. She let the friction stroke it a little, pulling the woman's cheeks apart and pushing her hard, oversized clit into the tiny kissing hole of her anus. It sucked her in. Fuck yeah, Jazz moaned as she rode the woman. Ginny was squirming as much from the surprise of the tight fit as she was from the pleasure. She felt Jazz's large frame press against her small one and struggled to free herself. Jazz was unrelenting. That's right, fight me if you want it, but this shit is mine. She pumped hard into the woman's tight little hole. Ginny reached out for Jazz, who grabbed her hand and held her behind the woman's back as she pumped her even harder. The woman moaned and begged her, "Please, Jazz, please let me get my clit, baby, please." Jazz eased back up off the woman and looked around the room. Still holding her hair in one arm, slowly she led the woman up from the bench and moved toward the sink. She got a good look at the two of them in the mirror behind it and liked what she saw. Shit, I had to breathe. "Let me see you." She pulled the woman back and toward her and held her tightly by the arm and wrist. Ginny struggled to reach her clit. She bent her knees and reached down to feel the softness of her bare pussy. Jazz leaned her head to get a better view. She watched the woman stroke the shiny wet clit. Brown contrasted against ruby red walls of her hole. The lips were tinged in ebony where her hair once covered them. Jazz spun her around, pushed her up onto the counter. She spread the legs open and pulled her forward to the edge of the sink. At 4'11", there wasn't much of her to pull. She moved so easily under Jazz's hand, and Jazz pushed 4 fingers past the soft lips and ruby walls into the burning furnace and stroked. Ginny stifled the desire to scream her pleasure by burying her face into the rough wool of Jazz's dinner jacket. Jazz thrust her hand again, this time stroking hard and fast and watching the juice spitting onto her thighs and the hem of her dress shirt. She bent the woman back, pulled her fingers out, and reached down to ravage the pussy with her mouth. Ginny couldn't hold back the moans this time. They bounced from the floor to the ceiling, the walls to the mirrors, the steel doors and back again, each moan, each squeal a testament to Jazz's skilled lips, tongue, and mouth. She reached for Jazz, who again grabbed her by the wrist and held him this time over her head with one hand while she slowly began to pump the pussy with the other. The combination of the fingers in her pussy and the mouth on the clit was enough to send her over the edge. She tried desperately to fight her way loose from the multiple orgasms which overtook her body. Finally, she simply shook in resignation as Jazz had her way with her. By now, Jazz was ready to get hers. Ginny's body was like jello, yet Jazz couldn't resist the ease of entering the unrelenting woman. She pulled out of her pussy, took the tight knot in her mouth and flicked it with her tongue. Ginny's body flopped in spastic bursts and arched her belly upward. Jazz grabbed the woman's ankles and pressed them against the woman's chest. Sensing what was next, Ginny fought as hard as she could, which isn't saying much. Jazz pressed her left arm down on the legs and looked first at the opening, then grabbing the clit with her mouth, she took 2 fingers and pressed them into the anus, stroking her full force as the woman bucked and came and bucked and came and bucked and came. Repeatedly between the strong screams, seemingly caught in her throat. Jazz was hard and still, and her cum was at the surface. She let the woman up and lowered her to the floor, where she mounted her again, this time without struggle, as she entered the opening hole. Ginny moaned, "Yes, baby, please, yes," feeling the cool marble beneath her and her rough lover on top. She spread her arms for Jazz to hold as she thrust her dark, hard clit inside and repeatedly withdrew, the kissing friction of the butthole pulling and tugging the clit into submission. She grunted and came all over Ginny's ass. Oh, yeah. As the two women lay spent in the middle of the floor, they finally heard the sound which both of them had missed earlier. "Is everything all right in there?" The knock came again. They heard the voices, one, no, maybe two or three, discussing what to do. "Are you hurt? We're looking for the key." Someone suggested they try again to pick the lock. Ginny and Jazz looked in horror as they heard the slim metal enter the keyhole. Both women jumped up, grabbed their clothes, and pressed themselves into a stall. "You go, no, you, no, for Pete's sake. Leave Pete out of this. He ain't had nary a nickel in this damn quarter. Come on, let's give him something to talk about." Jazz unlocked her stall and peeked out at the stunner in front of her, who was adjusting her stockings and fixing her hair. Jazz flicked her suspenders and checked her shirt tail. Ginny leaned in and kissed her, leaving a big red print on her cheek. "What'd you do that for?" "Didn't want to leave any doubt." "Shall we?" Jazz unlocked the door and opened it as Ginny waltzed through it, her hand in Jazz's, sporting the mark of her loving on her cheek, the gasps and giggles going up around them. "Well, I never!" one woman exclaimed. Before Jazz could stop her, Ginny spun around and said, "And it shows. You should try it sometime." She turned around and walked through the